Good morning. I'm Katie Yankosik, and you are here on The Grace to Recover. We are working through my book, the workbook, Recover in Color, and I appreciate you joining in. And I keep those emails coming and comment below so I can be in touch with you. Today we're going to work on the lesson called Count the Cost, which has to do with emotional regulation. You're going to color this page because the coloring book is talk therapy, art therapy, and music therapy. And there will be questions and a song that we'll talk through. Let me show you my drawing or my coloring. Count the cost. We're going to use the metaphor of emotional spending like financial spending. And many of us are, well, some of you, not so much me, I'm getting better, are careful with the way we spend our money. And then some of us are working on trying to be more careful with the way that we spend our money. We don't want to waste our financial resources because they're limited. None of us have access to an unlimited amount of money. So we try to train ourselves to avoid an impulse purchase. We want to try to make a budget and then follow that budget. We safeguard our cash, we hide it, and we safeguard our bank account information. It's not public information, at least we hope not. And we know the importance of that. We even teach a little kid about guarding their wallet and different things, when you have, if and when you have kids or you're teaching somebody else. But when it comes to our emotional bank accounts, we tend to let, we tend to, or we can, I don't know where you are, but possibly you have an issue with boundaries and privacy, and you don't have the same attention to security, privacy, and discretion. Discretion meaning the wisdom to know what you're going to spend your emotional bucks on, your emotional dollar bills. So I'm using a metaphor of an actual dollar bill into an emotional dollar bill. Hopefully you catch that. Now, imagine that you receive a certain amount of emotional bucks per day. You wake up and emotional dollar bills in the day are in your bank account, and it's a diminishing amount. You have to spend it. You're spending it the minute you pick up your cell phone in the morning and you start tuning into whatever you're tuning into, it's costing you something. When you take a phone call, when you watch the news and you're getting upset about something, getting fired up, boop, there's $5 of your emotional dollar bills gone. You spent it. Drive to work, frustrated about somebody's driving on the interstate. You get to work, something got mixed up with your schedule, or you got a late email that you didn't see and you don't have time to really thoughtfully reply. Emotional dollar bills, you're spending them. Someone comes in and trauma dumps on you and tells you stuff, it's going to cost you. So this week, the lesson is called Count the Cost. And I want you to spend some time thinking about how we have a limited amount of emotional capacity. You'll hear the term bandwidth. I don't have the bandwidth, which is the computer analogy, to deal with something. And we feel bankrupt. All right, let's sketch up with the lesson here. Let's see. Okay, it can come down to we see someone doing something that we don't like, we get mad. It costs us. Log into social media, get interested in other people's lives, emotional bucks. It costs you. Many of us spend our emotional resources on other people, and then we're without the emotional bills that we need to spend on ourselves. You spend all your money at work, so to speak, emotional money at work. You come home, nothing left for the family. You feel depleted. Sometimes we actually waste emotional dollar bills on things that you think are pleasurable. They're just sort of like a fleeting pleasure, but it's more like a distraction. Very recently, I started watching. I came to learn what shorts are on YouTube. I know I'm late. I'm late to the game. I think they're on other social media platforms. And my oldest son, who's 25, is like, oh, great. Mom has entered the matrix. And he's telling me, do not do it. Don't spend your time doing that. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't want to do that. But it can eat up your time. It eats up a resource. It eats up your attention, your energy. And then before you know it, I've just wasted time watching other entertainment things that were distracting me from what I was supposed to be doing. We fall into bed at night, we can feel emotionally broke and frustrated that we've got nothing left. We might be angry then for people taking something from us. There's a sort of low grade anger that will happen when you're depleted and you're not refilling back up. By the way, I want to thank my friend Dan and his wife Tammy for giving me this Alaska. They came to visit us. They're actually still touring around in Alaska. We're going to meet up later. My husband and I will meet up later next week with them and join back into the tour and do some fun adventures with them. But they went to the store and bought me this shirt, which is fun. My great state of Alaska, the last frontier. Okay, so let's get back to the lesson. And then it says we might become angry at somebody taking something from us. We haven't protected our resources, and somebody took our last emotional dollar bill, our last bit of energy, our last bit of attention, and now we're wiped clean. We're a little bit frustrated, maybe mad at ourselves. We lay into bed and fritter away our last emotional dollar bill of that day. Ironically, we break ourselves. We break our own bank at the end of the day. We yearn to have something left for our families and our important person in our life at the end of the day. By the end of the work week, you can find yourself depleted and in a state of emotional indebtedness and subsequent irritability. Just like when you have real financial stress, like there's not enough dollar bills at the end of a week or a month to get the things that you need to sustain your lifestyle, you can be frustrated, irritable, and discontented and resentful. That can happen on the emotional side too. And this week, under Count the Cost lesson, I really think it could benefit you. I know it's benefiting me just to redo this week, to think through the concept. It has caused me to be careful when I pick up my phone. I'm making a choice. Am I going to spend dollar bills, emotional dollar bills, on whatever I'm going to get in if I get into the matrix? This week, let's be purposeful in establishing healthy measures. Examine your emotional dollar bill spending habit. Really take a good inventory of what you're doing. Find out where you're losing emotional resources. Are you invested in something? This time of year, people are invested in politics and they're spending a lot of their personal emotional resources on a campaign or a purpose. And I'm not saying it's not good to be involved and passionate about something, but what is it costing you? Is it costing you something? Are you okay with the price tag of that? Beware of relationships with people who steal your emotional dollar bills. Beware of how you overspend. Gain skills in counting the cost before wasting your emotional bucks. Is that a situation where you want to spend your emotional bucks? Maybe the email, the text, the morning routine, maybe it's too much, too depleting. Change your spending patterns and be sure that you allocated enough time for yourself in your priorities. I'm not a financial person, but there's financial people who will say, used to say, they probably still say it, pay yourself first. When you get your paycheck, put it back in the bank of your own, give yourself money back. The rule that my husband and I have used was give away your first 10% of earnings, bank the second 10%, and live with joy and thanksgiving on 80% on the rest, which is a principle we learned from an old pastor and somebody whose books we had read, which was a good little helpful thing. And we trained our kids with that too. And you can think about that with your emotional dollar bills too, although the percentages may not line up exactly 10, 10, and 80. Okay, maybe mindless scrolling through social media posts is costing you too much. Why pay out your bucks on other people's drama? Pace your emotional spending this week. So I was making the analog that you wake up in the morning and you have a certain balance for that day. Maybe you want to think about the balance through the week. Some of us gain energy as you hit Thursday and Friday in the week. You tend to have a little upsurge of energy. The weekend's coming. You don't have a Saturday morning alarm clock, maybe, if that's your schedule. Okay, conserve your resources and lower your emotional expenditures. You know the people that drain you, you know the things that drain you. Are you going to stay in an alliance with yourself to discipline yourself to come away from the thing that's costing you so much? Are you going to gain an awareness? Maybe that's the first step, is just gaining an awareness. I don't feel great emotionally when I turn on the TV and listen to the negative chatter. It's making me feel a little bit restless and irritable before work. Maybe you'll change your routine. That is your choice. Spend fewer bucks on upsetting events and save those emotional bucks for celebrating and sharing the pleasant things in life with the people that you love. Do you ever think about that? If you have less content in your head, less information, if when it comes time to celebrate or be present with somebody, you may be able to better do that if your head is not swimming with so much content. It's an exercise in being present and being mindful and being intentional, and to simplify some things. I give you permission to take a closer look at that. And remember that the people who are closest to you, they do need you, and they do want they want to deepen their relationship with you. Find the better return on your emotional investments, just like financially. Oh, you might switch things around in your stock and bonds portfolio if you're that kind of investor, because this one is giving out 5% interest return, and so the other one's only giving 2%. You should reallocate your funds, make more money on here. Emotionally, it can be that way too. You know the people that you're with that bring you joy and energy and make you feel better about life. They just have a better disposition, a better outlook, great energy. You want to be with them more than you're with somebody who's taking, and wearing you out with complaining and negativity. Why not spend a few emotional bucks on yourself? Those bucks are yours. That's a gift from God. Okay, under personalize this lesson, let's go through that. Think, feel, do, and memorize. So under think, it says, I have a limited amount of emotional energy that I can spend each day. I must look closely for the invisible price tag, and I must count the cost. I will spend and I will invest wisely. Think about that. That is something to think about this week. I will spend and I will invest wisely. Feel. I feel in charge of my emotional accounting. I feel in charge. Some of you, I used to do this, I'm not now. Some of you are still binge watching television content that is just evaporating your emotional dollar bills. It's killing your time, and you're involved in these drama stories of people that you're not really in a relationship with. You're in a fake relationship with them. And also, it's maybe trashing the purity of your own minds. So take a look at that. You are in charge, and I want you to repeat that. I feel in charge of my emotional accounting, because you are in charge. I feel responsible for how I spend my bucks. Yes, you are responsible. You should feel responsible. And do calculate the cost and spend your emotional bucks purposefully on your priorities. It's just like if you ever have a stack of cash. It's so hard to have a stack of cash these days, but you ever have cash and then you have to think differently about how you spend it. We're so used to buying on credit, we don't even think about it. Swipe. But if you have a stack of cash, you're spending differently. You're thinking about it. Whew, it's like $28 to go out for just 2 fast food meals. You think differently because it costs you. You recognize the cost. Think about that emotionally. And then the memory verse for count the cost is, for which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? And that's from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verse 28. For which of you, this is Jesus himself talking. And now, mind you, he's talking about discipleship. He's talking about it's going to cost you to be a disciple. Salvation is free. I want you to go over to Grace in Your Face, Renee Roland's channel. She will talk to you about the difference between a salvation gift, free gift, and the cost of discipleship. Don't confuse those two things, but that's her channel, not mine, and it's a great channel. Grace in Your Face, Renee Roland. This, I'm pulling the concept from Jesus's talk when he's saying to them, for which of you is using the idea of like you're going to build something, for which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it. Later in the verse in the scripture, it sort of says that you'd be mocked or laughed at if you started a project that you couldn't finish. And I may have actually heard this on Renee Roland's channel, a little quote I wrote down that says, always start how you plan to finish. So if you start into something with high vigor and high energy, be the caliber of person, have the character, the calibration in your character to also finish that way. Because a lot of times we'll bluster it up and be so into it, and then we lose steam. So always start with how you plan to finish. All right, let's go over to page 77 and do the 4 questions. The song this week is Spend a Life by David Dunn, and it is a great little song. So I hope you'll spend some time listening while you're coloring this week. Question number 1, how do you spend your emotional box? And I just made a little grid. I won't go through it, but on my phone tells me, it tells me my screen time. You were on an hour and 40 minutes this week per day. I'm like, okay, I'm spending some time and spending emotional dollars on that. When I did my little thing, I was like, I'm spending a lot of time just household things here and there, getting ready, food, preparing food, shopping for food, doing laundry, household things I'm spending time on. And that is an emotional expense too. But my time and emotions are linked. Question 2, in what areas do you overspend your emotional box? And I put that I'm still working through, I put people pleasing. And I had an example because it's the Alaska State Fair this week, this last two weeks here. And I go to to little booths and I love to see the crafters and everything. And I recognize financially, I want to encourage each of them and thank them for their gifts and their crafts. And I want to buy something. So I'm overspending to their benefit, which is greater than to my benefit because I'm buying stuff I don't need. I almost bought a dog collar and then we had to put our dog down. So I don't even have a dog. I didn't, because she also was selling bear bells. You wear little bear bells up here when you're hiking. So you can also wear a gun too. But I ended up buying that. But I almost bought a dog collar because they're so precious and she made them herself and I wanted to validate her. So in the emotional realm, I'm overspending emotional dollar bills on other people. And it's just my life thing I'm working through. All right, question number 3, moving on. How can you spend emotional bucks on yourself that would benefit your emotional health? And I put more time in prayer and worship, more in the 12-step lingo, more time making conscious contact with the God of my understanding, which for me is Jesus, and also more time just physically exercising and moving my body. I can be so cerebral and stuck in the box of my head that getting out and moving my body and slowing my thoughts down to the pace of my body movement, it benefits me. And I spend emotional dollar bills on me that way. That's reinvesting the dividends. It's like taking 10% of my income and putting it into the bank account. All right, and question number 4, the last one, name 2 strategies to cut down on wasted spending of your emotional bucks this week. Remember, in Recover and Color, we work on 1 week at a time. Count the cost is your mantra for this whole week. You're looking at this verse and memorizing it for the entire week. Put it on loop and get really, really smart about it. My strategies are 1, to set clearer intentions of what I'm supposed to do for the day. Really want to get a daily intention so I can get through some projects. I'm doing some writing projects and I need to be intentional. I have some phone calls I need to return to people. I'm sorry, Sarah, I need to call you back. But I need to be intentional so that at the end of the day, I have kind of affirmation to myself that I did what I said I was going to do. Strategy number 2 for me to cut down on wasted emotional bucks. Number 2 is to get up early. I had to get up early today to do a Zoom call. I had to get up at 6, get on the Zoom call, get ready on the Zoom call by 7:30. And I was super excited about how much time I've had left in the day. I've been able to make this video. And I got to go do my hair, and I'm looking at my hair because I'm going out to dinner with some friends. So that is my strategy. I've had a great time chopping it up with you and chatting with you. And I will see you next time on The Grace to Recover. Thank you so much. Bye bye. God bless.